The first thing that happens is this: peace disappears. And when peace leaves, confusion enters. You are still in the relationship, still talking, still trying, but deep inside something feels off. You cannot explain it logically. Nothing dramatic may have happened on the outside, yet on the inside, your spirit is restless. You lie down at night and your mind will not settle. You wake up tired even after sleeping. The joy that once felt natural now feels forced. This is not emotional weakness, and it is not imagination. This is spiritual sensitivity. Peace is not just a feeling, peace is a signal. It is one of the primary ways God communicates direction to His people. When peace is present, heaven is in agreement. When peace is removed, heaven is withdrawing its approval. You may try to reason it away. You may say, every relationship has challenges, or this is just a phase, or maybe I'm overthinking. But the unrest does not go away. In fact, it grows stronger the more you ignore it. You begin to feel tension during conversations that used to feel natural. Words feel heavier than before. Silence feels uncomfortable. You start second-guessing yourself, not because you are insecure, but because your spirit is no longer settled. This is what happens when God begins to pull His peace back. He does not always speak loudly. He often speaks by subtraction. When He removes peace, He is removing permission. There is a difference between temporary discomfort and spiritual disturbance. Temporary discomfort challenges you but does not drain you. Spiritual disturbance drains your strength, your focus, and your clarity. You begin to notice that after interacting with this person, you feel exhausted rather than encouraged. Your prayer life feels interrupted. Your worship feels distracted. Your mind keeps replaying conversations long after they are over. This is because peace is the guard of the heart. When peace leaves, your heart becomes exposed, and everything starts affecting you more deeply than it should. God uses peace as a boundary. When you are walking in the direction He has ordained, peace acts like a cushion. Even in difficulty, there is calm. Even in uncertainty, there is rest. But when you step outside of that direction, peace is the first thing to leave. Not love, not attachment, not desire. Peace goes first. That is why you can still love someone and yet feel deeply unsettled around them. Love can exist without peace, but purpose cannot. God will never allow peace to coexist with a relationship that threatens your destiny. At first, the absence of peace is subtle. It shows up as hesitation. You pause before responding. You feel uneasy making future plans. You sense resistance when thinking long-term. Something inside you hesitates, even when your emotions want to move forward. Over time, that hesitation becomes heaviness. What once felt exciting now feels burdensome. What once felt safe now feels uncertain. This is not because the person suddenly changed. It is because God has changed the atmosphere around the connection. Many people make the mistake of fighting to restore peace instead of asking why peace left. They try to fix conversations, adjust behavior, compromise values, and suppress instincts, hoping things will feel right again. But peace does not come from effort. Peace comes from alignment. You cannot manufacture peace where God has removed it. You can silence your conscience for a moment, but you cannot silence your spirit. The more you try to force what God is resisting, the louder the unrest becomes. Peace is not removed to confuse you, it is removed to protect you. God sees the full picture while you only see the present moment. He sees where this relationship is leading. He sees the cost it will demand later. He sees the spiritual impact it will have on your calling, your growth, and your obedience. So He sends a warning, not through thunder or visions, but through the quiet disappearance of inner rest. The discomfort you feel is mercy in disguise. When peace is gone, discernment sharpens. You begin noticing things you once overlooked. Patterns you once excused start standing out. Words that once sounded harmless now feel heavy. You realize you are constantly explaining, defending, or justifying. Your spirit becomes alert, not anxious, but aware. This awareness is not meant to accuse the other person. It is meant to awaken you. God is not trying to make you suspicious. He is trying to make you wise. Ignoring the loss of peace comes with consequences. When you stay where peace is absent, stress increases. Emotional fatigue sets in. You become more reactive, more sensitive, more drained. You may even start blaming yourself, thinking you are the problem. But peace does not leave because you are broken. Peace leaves because something is misaligned. God would rather disturb your comfort now than allow destruction later. Peace is also connected to obedience. When God removes peace, He is often preparing you to make a decision you have been avoiding. The unrest pushes you to pray more seriously, listen more carefully, and seek clarity more deeply. It forces you to confront truth instead of living on feelings. This is why the absence of peace often intensifies when you are close to a turning point. God is narrowing the path, making it harder to ignore His direction. The danger is staying too long after peace has left. The longer you remain, the more confusing things become. What started as a gentle nudge becomes internal conflict. You feel pulled in opposite directions. One part of you wants to hold on, while another part wants to run. This inner division is not random. It is the result of resisting divine guidance. Peace was meant to guide you out, quietly. But when ignored, the exit becomes painful. God values your future too much to allow you to feel comfortable in a relationship that will cost you your purpose. That is why peace is non-negotiable. When peace is present, you can trust the direction even if you do not understand the journey. When peace is absent, you must question the direction even if your emotions are attached. Peace is not a luxury, it is a requirement. When God removes it, He is drawing a line you are not meant to cross. The second thing that begins to happen is repeated conflict. And it does not come in dramatic explosions at first. It starts small, almost insignificant. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel strained. Simple statements turn into misunderstandings. Jokes are taken the wrong way. Intentions are questioned. You find yourself saying, "That's not what I meant," more often than before. What makes it confusing is that you are trying harder, communicating more, explaining more, yet things seem to get worse instead of better. This is because when God doesn't want you with someone, He allows friction to reveal what harmony once concealed. Conflict in this season is not random, and it is not simply a personality clash. It is exposure. God lifts the covering that once smoothed over differences, and suddenly everything feels sharper. The patience that once felt natural now feels forced. The grace that once made compromise easy begins to run out. You start noticing that the same arguments repeat themselves, even after apologies are made. Nothing truly resolves. It just resets and comes back again, stronger than before. This cycle is not meant to exhaust you, it is meant to awaken you. When God withdraws His hand from a relationship, the truth surfaces. Words begin to reveal deeper attitudes. Reactions expose inner priorities. You begin to see how the other person responds under pressure, how they handle disagreement, how they treat your boundaries, and how they value your voice. These are not new traits. They were always there. What is new is your ability to see them clearly. God is allowing conflict to become a mirror, showing you what emotional attachment once blurred. Many people confuse love with compatibility. Love can survive conflict, but compatibility requires alignment in values, direction, and spirit. When God does not want you connected to someone, He allows conflict to highlight the lack of alignment. You may both want peace, but you want it in different ways. You may both want resolution, but you approach it with different motives. One wants understanding, the other wants control. One wants growth, the other wants comfort. Conflict exposes these differences because they cannot remain hidden forever. You may notice that arguments escalate quickly. What should be a calm discussion turns tense in minutes. You feel unheard, dismissed, or misunderstood. Even when you express yourself clearly, the response feels defensive or minimizing. This is not because you are communicating poorly, it is because the relationship no longer has divine grace sustaining it. Without grace, even the smallest disagreement feels heavy. Without grace, every conversation becomes work instead of connection. Repeated conflict also reveals power dynamics. You begin to notice who always has to apologize, who always adjusts, and who always sacrifices. You start realizing that peace is maintained only when you stay quiet or compromise your values. The moment you stand firm, conflict arises. This is a critical revelation. God uses tension to show you where imbalance exists. If harmony depends on your silence, that harmony is false. Real unity does not require self-erasure. As conflict increases, emotional safety decreases. You may find yourself holding back thoughts to avoid arguments. You measure your words carefully, not out of wisdom, but out of fear of another fight. This self-censorship drains you. You begin to feel like you are walking on eggshell. Constantly managing reactions instead of expressing truth. This is not the environment God designed for growth. Conflict in this stage is not pushing you closer, it is pushing you awake. Another sign is that resolution becomes temporary. Arguments end, but nothing changes. Promises are made, but patterns remain. You forgive, but the behavior repeats. This repetition is not accidental. God is showing you that the issue is not misunderstanding, it is unwillingness. Conflict is no longer about miscommunication, it is about misalignment. You are trying to build something with someone who is not building in the same direction. Conflict also exposes spiritual differences. You may notice that your convictions clash. What matters deeply to you feels unimportant to them. What you consider boundaries, they see as obstacles. What you see as growth, they see as pressure. These differences may not have mattered when emotions were strong, but now they surface through disagreement. God is allowing this tension so you can see whether this connection strengthens your walk or slowly pulls you away from it. Many people stay because they believe conflict means they need to try harder. But there is a difference between healthy conflict that leads to growth and destructive conflict that leads to exhaustion. Healthy conflict produces clarity, respect, and change. Destructive conflict produces confusion, defensiveness, and repetition. When God does not want you with someone, the conflict falls into the second category. It drains rather than builds. It confuses rather than clarifies. You may begin to notice that after every argument, something inside you shuts down a little more. Your enthusiasm fades. Your hope weakens. You stop imagining a future with the same confidence. This emotional withdrawal is not coldness, it is protection. Your spirit is responding to what your heart has been reluctant to accept. God is allowing conflict to do what comfort never could. Force you to confront reality. The most painful part of repeated conflict is realizing that love alone is not enough. You can care deeply and still be constantly at odds. You can desire peace and still experience tension. This realization is uncomfortable because it challenges the belief that effort can fix everything. God uses conflict to dismantle that illusion. Some relationships are not broken because people did not try hard enough. They are broken because they were never meant to last. As conflict continues, you may find yourself praying differently. Instead of asking God to fix the other person, you start asking for clarity. Instead of asking for peace at any cost, you start asking for truth. This shift in prayer is significant. It means the conflict has begun to accomplish its purpose. God is moving you from emotional attachment to spiritual discernment, using friction as the tool. Repeated conflict is not meant to teach you how to argue better. It is meant to show you what is incompatible. God allows the strain to increase until you can no longer ignore what is being revealed. What you are experiencing is not just disagreement, it is divine exposure, bringing to light what cannot move forward together without costing you more than you are meant to give. The third thing that begins to happen is divine interruption, and it often feels sudden, confusing, and completely out of your control. Plans that seemed solid start falling apart without a clear reason. Conversations that were supposed to bring clarity get delayed or cancelled. Opportunities to move forward together get blocked. You find yourself saying, "This should have worked," yet it didn't. You did everything right. You tried to be patient. You waited for the right moment. But something always interfered. This is not coincidence. When God doesn't want you with someone, He steps in and disrupts the flow. Divine interruption rarely comes as one big dramatic moment. It often comes in layers. First, there are delays. Things take longer than they should. Messages don't get answered. Meetings don't happen. Timing never lines up. Then there are closed doors. What once seemed open and promising suddenly shuts down. Options disappear. Circumstances shift. What makes it frustrating is that the interruption feels external, not emotional. It feels like life itself is resisting the connection. God uses circumstances when internal signals are ignored, when peace leaves and conflict increases, but you still hold on. God moves from internal warnings to external barriers. He begins arranging situations you cannot control. This is not punishment. This is protection. God is not trying to embarrass you or make you look foolish. He's trying to prevent you from stepping into something that will cost you more than you realize. You may notice that every attempt to move forward requires excessive effort. Simple steps become complicated. What should be smooth becomes stressful. You push harder, but resistance increases. His resistance is not the enemy fighting you, it is God stopping you. When God closes a door, human effort turns into exhaustion. You can force progress for a while, but it will never feel right, and it will never last. Divine interruption often comes through people. Advice you did not ask for suddenly confronts you. Trusted voices raise concerns you don't want to hear. Authority figures create boundaries that limit your plans. At first, you may feel frustrated or misunderstood, but God often speaks through structure and authority to redirect His people. He places obstacles in your path to slow you down long enough to see what you've been rushing past. Another form of interruption is distance. Physical distance may increase unexpectedly. Emotional distance may grow even when communication continues. What once felt close now feels far. You may still interact, but the connection weakens. This distance is not always caused by conflict. Sometimes it comes quietly, without explanation. D creates space when closeness would confuse you. Distance gives perspective. It allows you to see the relationship without the intensity that once clouded your judgment. You may also experience interruptions in your personal life connected to this relationship. Your focus begins to suffer. Your energy feels divided. Things that once moved forward easily in your life now feel stalled. God does this to show you the cost of the connection. He allows you to feel the weight of misalignment so you can recognize what is being drained. When something blocks your growth, God blocks the thing. Divine interruption can feel like rejection, but it is not rejection, it is redirection. God does not remove what is necessary for your destiny. He removes what competes with it. When a relationship begins to interfere with your peace, your obedience, and your purpose, God intervenes. He will interrupt comfort to preserve calling. He will disrupt attachment to protect alignment. You may find yourself asking, why does everything feel so hard now? The answer is that grace has lifted. Grace makes things flow. Grace creates ease even in difficulty. When God removes grace from a relationship, effort increases and results decrease. This is intentional. God is showing you that you are no longer meant to carry this connection forward. What once felt natural now feels forced because the season has changed. Some interruptions come through unexpected events. Changes in schedules, relocations, new responsibilities, or sudden limitations. These events may seem unrelated, but they create barriers that slow or stop the relationship's progression. God uses timing to separate what emotions want to hold together. You may try to adjust, rearrange, and compensate, but the interruptions continue. This persistence is a sign. When God is determined to redirect you, He is consistent. Divine interruption also exposes dependency. You begin to realize how much of your emotional energy has been invested in this one connection. When access is limited, discomfort rises. This discomfort reveals attachment. God interrupts to loosen what has become too tight. He does not want anything to hold a place in your life that belongs to Him alone. Interruption restores proper order. At times, the interruption comes at a moment when you finally feel ready to move forward. This is what makes it painful. You think, why now? But timing matters to God more than readiness does to you. God sees what moving forward now would produce later. He interrupts not because you are unprepared, but because the outcome would be harmful. When divine interruptions keep repeating, it is not because you are unlucky. It is because God is being clear. One closed door may be coincidence. Multiple closed doors in the same direction are instruction. God is communicating through resistance. He is saying that no matter how strong your desire is, this path is not yours to walk. You may feel tempted to bypass the interruption, to find alternative routes, to negotiate around the obstacle. But every detour increases confusion. God's interruptions are invitations to pause, not challenges to overcome. They are moments designed to slow your pace so your discernment can catch up with your emotions. Divine interruption is one of the clearest signs that God is actively involved in your direction. Silence would be more dangerous. Resisting. E means God is near. He is guarding your future by disrupting your present. What feels like delay is deliverance. What feels like blockage is blessing in disguise. God is rearranging your path, not to limit you, but to keep you aligned with what will bring life instead of loss. The fourth thing that begins to happen is heartbreak. And this is the part people struggle with the most because it feels personal, deep, and unbearable. When God does not want you with someone, He allows your heart to break, not because He enjoys your pain, but because pain is sometimes the only thing strong enough to break attachment. You may not lose feelings immediately. You may still care deeply. You may still miss them. But something shatters inside, and that breaking is not accidental. It is surgical. Heartbreak in this season does not come suddenly like a shock. It unfolds slowly. Disappointment follows disappointment. Hope rises and falls repeatedly. You believe things will change, then they don't. You think this time will be different, but it isn't. Each moment chips away at what you were holding on to. God allows this process because sudden separation would feel cruel, but gradual breaking loosens the grip your emotions have on what your spirit needs to release. What makes this heartbreak different is that it pushes you toward God rather than away from Him. You find yourself praying through tears. You talk to God more honestly than before. You stop pretending you are strong. You stop explaining it away. Pain strips you of illusions. It removes the false belief that love alone can override purpose. In heartbreak, clarity begins to form, even when answers are not yet clear. God understands emotional bonds. He created the heart, and He knows how deeply it can attach. That is why He does not rip people away without preparation. He allows heartbreak to do what reasoning could not. You may have heard advice, you may have seen warning signs, but you stayed because your heart was involved. So God speaks to the heart in a language it understands. Pain becomes the message. Heartbreak also reveals what you were relying on emotionally. You may realize how much validation, comfort, or identity was tied to that person. When they are no longer consistent, your emotional foundation shakes. This is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. God does not want your sense of worth anchored to someone who cannot carry it. He breaks the attachment so He can restore proper alignment. During this heartbreak, you may feel abandoned, even by God. You ask why He allowed it to hurt this much. But God is not absent in heartbreak. He is close, watching, guiding, limiting the damage. He allows the pain, but He does not allow it to destroy you. There is a boundary to the suffering, even if you cannot see it yet. God uses heartbreak as a refining fire, not a consuming one. Heartbreak slows you down. You lose motivation for things that once distracted you. Noise fades. You become quieter, more reflective. This slowing is intentional. God creates space for you to process truth. Without heartbreak, you might move too quickly into another attachment, repeating the same cycle. Pain forces you to sit still long enough to learn. You may notice that the heartbreak brings up deeper wounds from the past. Old insecurities resurface. Fear of rejection intensifies. Memories you thought were healed come back. This is not regression. This is exposure. God allows the current pain to bring unresolved issues to the surface so they can finally be addressed. Healing does not happen in avoidance. It happens in confrontation. Heartbreak also changes how you see yourself. At first, it may damage your confidence. You question your judgment. You wonder why you stayed so long. But over time, something shifts. You become more aware, more discerning. You begin to recognize your patterns. You see where you ignored your intuition. This awareness is painful, but it is empowering. God uses heartbreak to mature you emotionally and spiritually. In this season, your prayers change. You stop asking for the relationship to be restored and start asking for strength to move forward. You stop bargaining and start surrendering. This transition is significant. It marks the moment your heart begins to align with what your spirit already knew. God is not forcing you to let go. He is giving you the clarity to choose release. Heartbreak also reorders your priorities. What once felt urgent no longer does. You become more selective with your energy. You value peace differently. You are no longer impressed by intensity alone. You begin craving stability, consistency, and alignment. This shift is the fruit of pain. God is shaping your standards through experience. You may feel lonely during this process, even when surrounded by people. This loneliness is not emptiness, it is transition. God often removes emotional substitutes so He can become your source again. When human connection fails, divine connection deepens. This does not mean you stop desiring relationships. It means you stop idolizing them. Heartbreak teaches you that loss does not equal failure. Sometimes loss is obedience. Sometimes letting go is the most faithful thing you can do. God does not measure success by how long something lasted, but by whether it served its purpose. Some relationships are meant to teach, not to stay. Heartbreak is the closing chapter of a lesson you could not learn any other way. As the pain continues, you begin to notice moments of relief. They are brief at first, a calm morning, a quiet moment of acceptance. These moments grow slowly. Healing does not rush. It builds quietly beneath the surface. God is restoring you even when you still feel broken. Heartbreak also protects you from returning. Once your heart has been wounded deeply enough, it becomes harder to romanticize what hurt you. Memory becomes more honest. You stop remembering only the good and start remembering the cost. This honesty is crucial. God allows pain to preserve you from repeating the same mistake. In time, the heartbreak changes shape. It becomes less sharp and more instructive. You carry it, but it no longer carries you. The ache turns into understanding. You realize that if things had continued, the damage would have been greater. God did not break your heart to harm you. He broke your heart to save your future. Through heartbreak, God separates emotion from destiny. He teaches you that feelings can be real and still be wrong for your future. He shows you that attachment does not equal assignment. This lesson stays with you. It changes how you choose, how you love, and how you listen to your spirit. Heartbreak marks the end of resistance. It humbles you. It softens you. It opens you to trust God in a deeper way. When everything else falls apart, your dependence shifts. You stop leaning on what is familiar and start leaning on what is eternal. This shift is painful, but it is powerful.